Titans, Satan, and the hidden history of Earth's earliest ages. Long before the dawn of recorded history, when the Earth was still young and the skies themselves seemed malleable to the will of gods and titans alike, humanity's story was intertwined with forces far greater than themselves. Ancient civilizations, myths, and texts all hint at a world ruled by beings of unimaginable power, entities whose influence shaped not only the land and seas, but the very destiny of mankind. In the earliest Greek accounts, the Titans are described as the primordial rulers, towering figures who embodied the raw forces of the cosmos. These were not mere legends, they were the embodiment of natural law, celestial authority, and the first order of divine governance over the earth. Among these Titans was Kronos, the king of this ancient pantheon, whose children would one day challenge his reign. From these ancient lines came the Olympians, led by Zeus, a figure whose story resonates strikingly with biblical narratives of rebellion, temptation, and dominion. According to Greek history, the Olympian gods were not distant observers. They were the descendants of Titans, born into a world already structured by their parents' power. Zeus, the son of Kronos, did not merely inherit authority. He led a monumental revolt against the very order that preceded him. It is a story of upheaval and redefinition, where the next generation of divine rulers rose against their forebears, seeking not only control of the heavens, but influence over the earth itself. This myth, when viewed through the lens of biblical history, becomes even more fascinating. In Christian theology, Satan is often portrayed as a rebellious prince, one who seeks dominion over mankind and the earth. A curious alignment appears when one examines the story of Zeus and the Olympians. The revolt against the Titans bears uncanny resemblance to the spiritual rebellion described in sacred texts. Zeus, as the son of the kingly Titan, embodies the role of a challenger, just as Satan is described as having once held a position of authority in the spiritual hierarchy before his fall. It is no coincidence, perhaps, that in the Gospel accounts, Satan approaches Christ during the 40 days of temptation in the wilderness, offering him all the kingdoms of the world in exchange for obedience. This act reveals the enduring principle. Satan, or the prince of this earth, seeks to control dominion by influencing those capable of leadership, power, and the course of human history. The connection between the Titans and Satan is more than symbolic. It demonstrates a recurring archetype in human understanding of power and rebellion. In both mythologies, there is a primordial order, a first generation of rulers whose authority is eventually challenged by a successor. The Greeks describe it as Titans versus Olympians. The Bible portrays it as God's divine order versus a rebel angelic prince. While the former is often interpreted as myth, the parallels cannot be ignored. Both speak to a truth that humanity has sensed for millennia, that those who seek control over the earth often do so by harnessing both rebellion and charisma, and that history, mythical or factual, is shaped by such conflicts of authority. Yet what of humanity in these narratives? Humans, it seems, were never the central actors, but they were deeply affected by the power struggles of these celestial figures. According to the ancient texts, the earth was a stage where Titans and Olympians enacted laws, disputes, and revolts, but the influence extended to humans indirectly. Every shift in divine hierarchy corresponded to shifts in earthly order, from natural disasters to the rise and fall of civilizations. In the same way, Satan's temptation of Christ reveals an awareness of humanity's potential for rulership and stewardship of the earth. The offer of earthly kingdoms was not idle, it was a recognition that dominion over mankind is central to dominion over the world itself. The correlation is striking. The same principle seen in myth plays out in spiritual history, bridging ancient Greek lore with biblical narrative. Interestingly, these stories also challenge common assumptions about the scope of divine warfare.
Many might expect a direct confrontation between saints and titans, or angels and Olympians, yet the earliest accounts suggest a subtler reality. Conflict was not necessarily physical, it was ideological, spiritual, and symbolic. The battles were for dominion, loyalty, and the hearts of those capable of influence. Humans and later prophets and saints were participants, yes, but in ways that reflected the struggle for allegiance rather than literal combat. In this light, the world itself becomes a chessboard for higher powers, where knowledge, obedience, and resistance determine the outcomes of history more than sheer force. The Titans, as parental figures of the Olympians, embody the foundational forces of creation: earth, sky, water, and time. Their authority was absolute, yet the rebellion led by Zeus demonstrates a recurring cosmic principle. No order remains unchallenged forever. The young prince, wielding inherited power and ambition, confronts the established hierarchy, introducing new laws and reshaping the world according to his vision. This mirrors the way Satan, once a high-ranking celestial being, sought to redefine authority outside the will of God. Both narratives emphasize a universal truth, that power is never static. It is contested, negotiated, and constantly subject to ambition. Reading the first chapters of Earth's earliest ages highlights humanity's proximity to these forces in a way that feels tangible. Early humans, though not yet fully conscious of divine politics, were nonetheless witnesses to a world shaped by these conflicts. Myths of giants, divine rulers, and cosmic upheavals were not merely stories, they were encoded memories of an Earth influenced by powers beyond mortal comprehension. Every tremor, flood, or celestial phenomenon could be interpreted as the expression of these primordial authorities. In this context, the Olympians' triumph over the Titans is more than myth. It is a framework for understanding the pattern of rebellion and succession that appears repeatedly in human history and spiritual teachings alike. The story of Zeus and the Olympians also sheds light on the psychology of rebellion and temptation. Zeus's revolt was not an act of mindless defiance, it was strategic, a calculated seizure of influence. Similarly, Satan's offer to Christ was not casual, it was an appeal to ambition, to the human capacity for leadership, and to the stewardship of the earth. Both illustrate that those who oppose divine or parental order often do so with a mixture of insight, cunning, and vision. They recognize the levers of authority, and they manipulate them in pursuit of dominion. In this sense, myths and biblical narratives converge, teaching that the struggle for control, whether cosmic, spiritual, or earthly, is less about raw strength and more about insight, persuasion, and strategic action. This leads to a provocative observation. If the Titans were the primordial rulers and Zeus's rebellion reflects the archetype of satanic rebellion, then the story of the Olympians may provide context for understanding spiritual authority on Earth. Satan, as the prince of this earth, embodies the role of Zeus, challenging established order, seeking influence over mankind, and demonstrating the eternal tension between obedience and ambition. This is not mere speculation. The texts themselves encourage reflection on these patterns. Both Greek and biblical histories recognize a hierarchical structure in the cosmos, with roles, duties, and ambitions that shape the very trajectory of the world. Humans, though seemingly small, are central to this pattern because their choices, obedience, defiance, faith, and ambition, determine the ultimate success or failure of these celestial endeavors. One may ask, why did the myths not depict outright warfare between humans or saints and titans? The answer seems to lie in the nature of power. Titans and Olympians, Satan and Christ, operate on a plane beyond direct human conflict. Their struggle is for influence, authority, and the shaping of laws and principles. Humans become participants indirectly as witnesses, inheritors, or stewards of the earth, affected by these cosmic decisions. This reinforces the idea that understanding power and history requires seeing beyond immediate physical events to the underlying forces that guide the rise and fall of civilizations. Every myth, every temptation, every rebellion encodes these lessons in dramatic narrative form. Reading the first chapters of Earth's earliest ages reminds us that human history is deeply entwined with forces we can scarcely measure. The earliest chapters speak of vast landscapes, emerging life, and the shaping of the planet by powers both natural and supernatural. When these events are interpreted alongside Greek myths and biblical accounts, a richer, more intricate story emerges, one where the Titans set the stage, Zeus or Satan challenges authority, and humanity's potential for leadership becomes the fulcrum upon which destiny turns. History, myth, and scripture converge here, revealing that the past was never silent. It was charged with intention, struggle, and the pursuit of dominion.